Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Archana Solanki. Here are the headlines we're tracking this evening. Another day and more records fall on Dalal Street. Nifty shrugs off weak global cues to hit a fresh all-time high for the third day in a row. Sensex posts a record close once again. Markets are now 4% higher over the last 2 weeks. That's the biggest two-week gain since December 2023. Mahindra & Mahindra overtakes Tata Motors to become India's second most valuable auto company. The stock has rallied close to 70% this year, beating all Nifty companies. This takes M&M's market capitalization to 3.64 lakh crore rupees. This is just 40,000 crores away from auto giant Maruti Suzuki's market cap. Hyundai's Indian subsidiary buckles up for what could be the country's largest ever IPO, looks to file its draft papers today, aims to raise up to 25,000 crore rupees. This would be the auto giant's first listing outside South Korea. Sources say Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is likely to present the first union budget of the NDA 3.0 government on or around the 22nd of July. A final decision on the date is awaited. G7 leaders reach an agreement in Italy to extend a $50 billion loan to Ukraine using frozen Russian assets. Prime Minister Modi is expected to bring up issues faced by the Global South during his scheduled bilaterals with the leaders. The union government is considering a 60,000 crore rupee outlay for electric buses. Sources say that the program would be aimed at rolling out over 8 lakh e-buses by 2030. The government is also considering credit guarantee and risk reduction fund to encourage banks to lend to e-bus operators. Mortal remains of the 46 Indians who died in the horrific Kuwait apartment blaze reached Kochi. 23 among them were from Kerala. Chief Minister Vijayan, Minister of State for External Affairs Kirti Vardhan Singh, along with other ministers, paid homage to the victims. Israeli tanks advance into western Rafah even as the United Nations-backed ceasefire plan stays in a limbo. UN has warned that more than 1 million people are expected to face death and starvation by the middle of July. At $45 billion, Tesla CEO Elon Musk retains the largest ever executive pay package at a US-listed firm, but the shareholder approval may still see legal challenges. Tesla shareholders also approved Musk's plan to move the company's state of incorporation to Texas. All right, first up, the day's market action. Records continue to tumble on Dalal Street as the Nifty hit new peaks for the third straight session. The Sensex posted a record close, but the index is still 200 points away from intraday records. Mid-caps continue to outperform, with the index hitting new highs for the fifth straight session. For the week, Nifty and Sensex gained for the second straight week, recording its biggest two-week gains since December 2023. India will be the largest economy by the end of this century. That's the word coming in from veteran investor Manish Chokhani. In an exclusive conversation with CNBC TV18, he said that the lower than expected seats for NDA, the Lok Sabha elections, spooked the market. However, he added that he would not be surprised if India sees inflows anywhere between $60 to $70 billion in the near future.
The conditions are such that India will create a bubble. And maybe retail is kind of smelling it. The institutional investors are obviously, they have to rotate their money as private equity and so on. Those are the fellows selling. I wouldn't be surprised you get like 50 and 60 and 70 billion dollars of inflows coming to participate in a market, which in the context of a $4 trillion market cap is not something so crazy. The fastest response doesn't typically come from regulators, it comes from private sector. And my belief is the private sector will participate by raising $10 billion. It could be, for example, it could be a Reliance or an Adani going and doing a $10 billion raise each for one or two of their entities. And that could absorb the capital, because capital clearly wants to come into India. What's happened is small cap, mid cap have actually experienced a bubble because some of the prices are just fantastic. I think some of those prices people will not see 10 years later. The companies will perform, don't get me wrong. I'm bullish on our economy. I think we get to number 3, and eventually in this century we will be number 1. We will be the largest economy in the world.
Wholesale price inflation has risen to 2.61% in the month of May as against 1.26% in April. This is the highest wholesale inflation in the country since February 2023. The surge came on the back of a rise in prices of crude petroleum, mineral oils and food articles. In contrast, the retail inflation data eased in the month of May to hit a 12-month low. India's trade deficit has widened to a little under $24 billion in May, while exports for the month rose nearly 9% compared to April. Imports shot up by 15%. Commerce Secretary Sunil Bhartwal attributed the rise in exports to growth in outbound shipments of pharmaceutical products and engineering goods. The first major G7 summit agenda reached its desired end in Italy. The nations have agreed on an outline deal to provide $50 billion of loans for Ukraine. This will be done using interest from Russian assets frozen after Moscow's invasion of its neighbor in 2022. Now, leaders of 7 major democracies who are currently in Italy also shared a light moment as they attended a skydiving demonstration program in a golf course. Now, amid the ongoing summit, a brawl also broke out in Italy's parliament during a vote on a controversial government bill concerning local autonomies. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also arrived in Italy. He is scheduled to hold crucial bilateral meetings with G7 leaders over the next few days. This is his first foreign trip since he took charge as India's Prime Minister for the 3rd consecutive term. CNBC's Steve Sedgwick joins us now. Steve, one major item ticked off the G7 bucket list. What does the $50 billion aid deal mean for Ukraine?
An important day, I think, for the G7, an important day for Ukraine and President Zelensky as well. A flurry of announcements, and I think there's more to come today as well when we get more glimpses of what the draft communique is going to look like, and the final communique, which undoubtedly, which will add to everything you've just said as well, have some form of implicit or direct criticism of China in there as well. And it will be not lost on any of our viewers, Sherry, the fact that actually so many of the G20 nations have been invited to this G7 meeting to make it look like it's less the West versus the rest, and actually try and perhaps put a circle around Russia and its support from the likes of China and say, look, you need to not have that support so much for Russia because it's going to start costing you and it's going to start costing your financial systems as well. So we saw that agreement last night between the US and Joe Biden as well. And actually, I managed to get along to that press conference. It was actually quite a tricky one to get into as well. It was very, very tight security as well. But it's very, very interesting talking about the longer term nature of the support for President Zelensky, which both Zelensky and indeed Biden were trying to make the point out that this was insulated regardless of who was in the White House. So perhaps a nod to the uncertainty of the domestic political scene in the United States as well.
Right, moving on, Hyundai Motors India is gearing up to enter Dalal Street. Sources have told CNBC TV 18 that the company will file its draft red herring prospectus today for what could be India's largest ever IPO. Parikshit Luthra joins us with more. Parikshit, take us through the contours of this IPO.
Well, this IPO could be valued at anything between $25 to $30 billion, according to reports and experts. This would make it the biggest IPO in India so far. We believe that the company is likely to sell 14.2 million shares in India via secondary offer. They're looking to raise 25,000 crore rupees via this IPO for the India market. Now, this would be Hyundai's first ever IPO outside South Korea. Recently, the Hyundai global chairman and CEO had visited the India headquarters of the company, held a town hall for about 3 to 4 hours, and gave the final approval for the IPO plans. Now, this is going to be very big in terms of electric vehicle development and production for the India market by Hyundai and also for global markets. Secondly, they will be exporting more from India. Thirdly, they will be manufacturing cells in India in the next 2 years or so. And the money would also be used for expanding capacity at existing plants and also at the Talegaon plant in Maharashtra, which has been acquired by General Motors, from General Motors. We hear that in the DRHP, the company could mention its EBITDA for 9 months of FY24 at 6,607 crores And for the 9 months of FY24, the profit would come to around 4,382 crores. So let's see how things go. Kotak Mahindra, HSBC, Citibank, JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley were some of the bankers who had supported Hyundai in this exercise. This would be the biggest ever IPO, definitely the biggest for the auto industry. And with this, Hyundai will look to give tough competition to the likes of Maruti Suzuki and Tata Motors over the next 5 to 10 years.
Parikshit, please stay on with us. Let's also talk about the other big story that you're tracking, which is that the government is considering an outlay of 60,000 crore rupees for its electric bus program. What are you picking up on that front?
With the NDA 3.0 now sworn in, the focus is coming back to electric mobility. The first thing that the government would want off its list is FAME 3. There were proposals earlier before the elections that a 10,000 crore FAME scheme should be brought in, and we now believe that that scheme would be there in Budget 2024. A final nod is awaited in the next few days. Secondly, and what could be a bigger trigger for India's electric vehicle ecosystem would be the Mega E-Bus Mission program for 2030, which has an outlay or proposed outlay of 60,000 crores. So the government aims to deploy at least 8 lakh buses, 2 lakh through state transport undertakings and 6 lakh through private bus operators by 2030. This is an extremely ambitious program, and the government officials believe this could be a game changer. Currently, it is at a proposal stage. It has to be decided upon by the Prime Minister's office, the Ministry of Heavy Industries, the Finance Ministry and the Ministry of Commerce. How will it work? Well, it will be a credit guarantee and a de-risking fund for banks, because of which they'll find it easier to lend to private bus operators who want to buy electric buses on scale. A very large chunk of the 60,000 crore package would go towards incentivizing setting up of charging infrastructure across strategic routes in the country, because bus operators want a lot of chargers and high-powered chargers across the country if they want to have an extensive electric bus fleet. So this package will also take care of that with a payment security mechanism that will work on a PPP basis. So let's see how things work out. But we believe that a cabinet note to this effect can be moved by September or October this year, and maybe by the end of the year we could see some movement on the bus program. But this will be perhaps one of the biggest decisions for electric mobility that India has taken so far, and perhaps the biggest step towards electric bus adoption anywhere in the world.
All right. Thank you so much, Parikshit, for that update. Moving on, British telecom major Vodafone is looking to sell its entire stake worth $2.3 billion in Indus Towers. A Reuters report says that the stake sale could be done through block deals next week. This move is part of the firm's effort to repay its debt. Vodafone currently owns a 21.5% stake in Indus Towers via various group entities. The final size of the stake sale is yet to be decided. Now, Bajaj Housing Finance has filed its IPO papers with market regulator SEBI for its proposed public issue. The company plans to raise 7,000 crore rupees. The public offering comprises a fresh issue of 4,000 crore rupees and an offer for sale of 3,000 crore rupees from its parent company, Bajaj Finance. Now, state-owned BHEL has secured orders for 2 power plants worth 7,000 crore rupees from Adani Power. The first order for the Raipur supercritical thermal power plant being set up in Chhattisgarh was from Adani Power, while the second order for the Mirzapur supercritical thermal power plant being set up in Uttar Pradesh was received from a subsidiary of the power company. Now, BHEL's scope for both projects includes the manufacture and supply of main plant equipment. More corporate news. Tata Group is in talks to acquire a majority stake in Indian unit of Chinese smartphone company Vivo. According to a Money Control report, discussions between the two companies have reached an advanced stage. The report has highlighted that Vivo is negotiating for a higher valuation than what the Tatas are offering. The Supreme Court will hear pleas seeking a CBI probe into the NEET UG entrance exam case on the 8th of July. Notices have been issued to the Centre and the National Testing Agency on the matter, while the NTA has been directed to file a response within 2 weeks. The Centre was given time till next date of hearing. The top court also said it will examine NTA's plea to transfer petitions pending in high courts to the apex court on the 8th of July. All right, it's time for a short break, but coming up next, at $45 billion, Tesla CEO Elon Musk retains the largest ever executive pay package at a US-listed firm. But the shareholder approval may still see legal challenges. More details when we return. Welcome back. You're watching Business 360. The bodies of 46 Indian nationals who died in a massive fire in a building near Kuwait city have been brought back to India. An Indian Air Force flight carrying the mortal remains first arrived in Kochi as about 23 of the victims were from Kerala. Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan and other ministers were present at the airport to pay their respects. Minister of State for External Affairs Kirti Vardhan, who coordinated with Kuwaiti authorities for the repatriation, was also on board the aircraft. Israeli tanks advance into western Rafah even as the United Nations-backed ceasefire plan stays in limbo. UN has warned that more than 1 million people are expected to face death and starvation by the middle of July. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is likely to table the first union budget of NDA 3.0 in the Parliament on July 22nd. Now, sources say that a final decision on the date is awaited. Sitharaman will make history by becoming the first finance minister to present 7 consecutive budgets, 6 complete ones and 1 interim. She will surpass Morarji Desai's record of 6 consecutive budgets. The government is likely to present the economic survey on July 3rd after a spectacular 2023 for the real estate industry. Developers are looking forward to the union budget in July to keep the momentum going. From tax cuts to sustainability, they have laid down several expectations from the first budget of NDA 3.0. Shivani Bazaz gets us this special report.
Well, with the budget 2024-25 only days away, top real estate players and industry thought leaders have a wish list. They want benefits and higher incentives for real estate, anticipating a budget that addresses critical challenges, stimulates demand and aligns with the government's vision of sustainable growth. One long-standing demand that the players have pushed for is an industry status for the real estate. Listen in to why these demands are important.
The small and medium builders who they do really serve the society, their place is becoming very difficult. By granting the industry status for this industry, they are going to save at least 20,000 small and medium builders in India. So, to safeguard the interest of the small and medium builders, we need industry status so that they will MSME status they will get and the loans are available for them. So today, the small builders are not eligible for most of the time for the bank loans because of various reasons. So what they are doing, they are borrowing from the private finance.
The government should give at least some kind of incentives, so that can be a stamp duty reduction. Likewise, in Maharashtra, they have given for the women empowerment the 1% of the stamp duty reduction. Then many of the women became the owner of the house. So likewise, if you give the stamp duty reduction from the green building, then certainly people will go for learning about it and the awareness will happen. So I would suggest them to give some incentives for the green building and sustainability to grow.
Many real estate players have also called for an expansion of the special window for affordable and mid-income housing stress fund and also tax relief for first-time home buyers and a reintroduction of GST with an input tax credit on under-construction properties. Industry bodies said that the government needs to work on making affordable housing a sustainable business model for developers.
The government has already addressed low-income housing and affordable housing, but I think a lot more needs to be done. Today, affordable housing is expensive and the private sector does not find enough sustainability in that business model because there is a lot that goes by way of taxes, by way of excise duties, all kinds of things. If you can pare away the taxes, unless the private sector finds it useful and sustainable as a business venture, they will not step into this.
Increased tax benefits should be given to women when they're investing in real estate projects. Subsidized home loans, reduced stamp duty, which I think some states have already implemented. Perhaps look at certain women housing schemes. I think that will be extremely interesting to see how women respond to it, and single window clearance.
From incentivizing green buildings to tax breaks for women home buyers, the real estate industry has a long wish list for the upcoming budget. How many of these wishes are granted, we'll have to wait and watch. In New Delhi with Vijay Saurabh Kumar, this is Shivani Bajaj for CNBC TV 18.
Right, that's a wrap on Business 360. But as we go, here's a quick note. A daily wrap of the top headlines will hit your inbox every day before you call it a night. CNBC TV 18's daily newsletter on LinkedIn featuring the top 10 stories on markets, corporates update, economic insights and financial highlights. So subscribe now and get the CNBC TV 18 edge. The news continues after this short break.